Welcome to the Shoreline, brought to you by Shores and Islands, Ohio, the Midwest's hottest vacation destination. I am your host, Jill Bauer. I'm the PR manager for Shores and Islands, Ohio, and joining me today, as always, is our social media manager, Dayton. Good morning, Dayton.
Good morning.
So if you're new to the podcast, our amazing destination is located on Lake Erie between Toledo and Cleveland on Ohio's north coast. And Dayton and I are here to give you the inside scoop on everything happening here in our island and coastal communities and talk about the events and the attractions that we think you're going to want to know more about and visit. Hopefully you've been following Dayton's adventures on our social media channels. He's always out and about in the community. He's showing you some hidden gems, some delicious eateries, and ways to warm up on these cold winter days. If you haven't been listening, you should go back to our previous podcasts because recently we've been chatting with our local indoor water park resorts. So, Dayton, what have you been up to over on the socials?
Yeah, we're always keeping it going on the socials. Right now, of course, like you mentioned, we're doing a lot of the Dine Local stuff. If you haven't been keeping up with that, we'll be doing that series, honestly, up until the summer. I just got back from Icifer over in Vermilion, which is a lot of fun. Yeah, it's always so many cool sculptures over there. I know we even had a sculpture last year, I think. I don't think we had one this year, but we had a sculpture last year. Live carvings everywhere. And of course, everybody loves the whole fire and ice show at the end because it's just a huge block of ice on fire. Like, how could you not want to see it? And it's awesome. It's such an awesome picture spot. And then of course we got the burning snowman coming up. It's just like a lot of. I was just
gonna say, speaking of things on fire.
Yeah, it's just we're just setting it all on fire. That's the most fun part, though, I think, about Burning Snowman is because, like, it's supposed to be a celebration getting away from winter,
right?
Burning it out. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. And it was a lot of people there last year. So I'm excited to go back this year.
That'll be a really fun event, folks. Make sure that you're following along. It's at the end of February. I think it's the last weekend. And it's really kind of how we kiss winter goodbye here on the North Coast. And speaking of winter and all things related to it, as you can tell by our destination name, part of our area does include the charming Lake Erie Islands. Most visitors frequent Kelly's Island, Middle Bass Island, and South Bass Island, which is also known as Put-in-Bay. That's the name of the village located on the island, and these islands are located off of the mainland here in Lake Erie, and to reach them you have to travel via air or ferry boat. And yes, people do live on these islands year-round, even though our ferry service is seasonal due to the sometimes cold temperatures here in northern Ohio during the winter. But we have a very special guest joining us today. Joining us on the shoreline is Captain David Bianchi. David grew up at Put-in-Bay, and he's worked at Miller Boat Line for over 40 years. He's done just about every job there is there. He's currently the chief engineer and has been a captain since 1985. I'm also told that he was the project manager on their newest ferry, the Mary Ann Market. On the island, David has been active in community service most of his life, serving as a firefighter, an EMT, school board member, zoning commission, and recreation committee. Sounds like he's keeping himself pretty busy over there. Hi, David.
Good morning. Good morning.
Thank you. Thanks, of course, for joining us. Let me tell the folks a little bit about Miller Ferry real quick. It's the only passenger and vehicle ferry service to Put-in-Bay and Middle Bass Island. It departs from the mainland at the tip of the Catawba Peninsula. And in season, Miller operates regular trips to both islands with more frequent trips during the summertime. They also offer low fares, free parking, free passage for pets, group discounts, and ADA accessibility. And of course, they have some of the nicest crew members around, including Captain David. So tell us a little bit about yourself, David. Well, I know that's a loaded question, right?
I'm not too accustomed to talking about myself, but I've been an island resident since birth, so of course that appeals to me. I love the community here. When I started working for Miller Boat Line, it turned out to be a good fit, and so I've stayed with that for a long time. I've enjoyed that, and I've enjoyed island life, both the busy summer season and the quiet times we enjoy in the winter.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's one of the most common things that we hear from visitors, people that are interested in this area is what is it like on an island in the winter time, right? I mean, it's a totally different atmosphere.
Yes, and it's not for everybody, and the isolation is something that some people enjoy and some people really can't tolerate. But there's always plenty to do here. If we get good ice, of course, people get out and enjoy ice boating and ice fishing and snowmobiling and those winter activities. And if not, you get a lot of work done at the house.
So, well, for example, the ferry doesn't actually run. You're kind of on a break right now, right?
Yes, the ferry. I mean, there was one winter I recall where we pretty much ran the entire winter. But when the lake freezes over, the ferries get laid up for a couple months. It used to be a little longer period, but it does give everybody a little break and a chance to catch their breath.
So you mentioned the isolation a little bit, David. What do you mean by that? Are you kind of cut off from everything?
So an example is we just had about 4 or 5 days of heavy fog, and there was no really getting on or off the island at all. Some people get cabin fever, but it's kind of nice. It gets down to just the small community here. You know everybody you pass on the road. You see people maybe at the one restaurant that's open or at the grocery store or the post office is a spot where you bump into people and maybe have a little visit and catch up. But for the most part, it's quiet and peaceful, and you can enjoy the beauty really that we're surrounded by, that sometimes we get so busy we kind of look past it.
So since you touched on it, so there's businesses open on the island. Like, what kind of things do stay open during the island? I'm sure it's not like a bunch of things, but like what's out there still?
Yeah, so there is one this winter. There's one restaurant that's open, the wharf side. It's a good little place on the water, and they have dart night, other activities, and good food. And then the grocery store is open this winter. The hardware store, the gas station, and the post office, and that's pretty much about it this winter. Some winters, maybe another restaurant will stay open, and some winters not.
So just enough to get everybody through the season.
My wife and I raised a couple of kids here, and of course I grew up here, and one of the things was that you do stock up on a lot of stuff for the winter, so you want to have a pantry and a good freezer, but the grocery store does a good job of keeping stuff on hand that you need regularly.
Yeah, how do they get their supplies? How does the grocery store stay stocked in the winter?
Well, they stock up on the sundries and the pantry items, and then the two air services both fly things over, so they fly produce and milk and eggs and bread over regularly throughout the winter.
Can you fly off the island, like if you wanted to go to the mainland?
Yes. There's two businesses that provide air service on and off the island. They're both using small 6-passenger aircraft.
Oh, that's very small.
Yeah, I've flown on everything. Well, when I was a kid, it was the Ford Trimotors. That's probably one of the unique things from my childhood that is interesting. I've flown on the Trimotor quite a bit, I guess. We didn't go back and forth a lot, but I had orthodonture, so I went back and forth every couple of weeks for one winter, and even included with Harold Howe flying the Trimotor, and I even included a stop at Rattlesnake one time when it was just me and my dad. So it's kind of it's different now. I've got some interesting island air stories. Let me tell you my favorite one.
Absolutely.
And my wife and I were trying to get off the island. This was before kids. We were trying to get off the island to go on a trip, and we got snowed in, and it was a couple days, and we were anxious to get off. Well, they resumed flying, and so we got on a Cessna airplane with Cindy Dagus. She was a great pilot, and we taxied out to the end of the runway, and it was so icy that she couldn't get the brake to hold to turn the plane around. So she shut the plane off, and we climbed out, and we turned it and aimed it down the runway.
Oh no!
and then we got back in the plane and took off and got to the mainland.
Oh my gosh!
And people think that maybe I'm making that story up, but it's the gospel truth.
That's perfect.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
Exactly. I've heard a lot, and I don't know if these are rumors, stories, legends. I've heard a lot about like literally driving cars on the lake Is that has that ever
Oh
happened in your
yes,
lifetime?
Oh,
Yeah.
you're wild.
yes, we did that a lot. So there were winters when we actually drove vehicles. Used to be cars with a bunch of the tops cut off of them and stuff, but when which we called ice cars, and then now there's ATVs and stuff that we didn't have back then.
Sure.
And there were winters where maybe for 5 or 6 weeks you could drive back and forth to the mainland. People really enjoyed that and took advantage of it, and it got to the point sometimes where you were just going over to go to McDonald's or something.
That blows my mind. I just because just now, I mean, I think what was it like 3% ice coverage on Lake Erie this year? It was very, very minimal. Did you even have much ice fishing out there this winter?
I did not get out, but there were guys that got out for 2 to 3 weeks, I guess, and then of course the weather turned and we got a lot of rain and the ice
Yeah.
deteriorated really quickly. But people are glad just to get out. There wasn't a lot of catching, but there was a fair amount of fishing, so people enjoy that. When I was a kid, it was mostly fishing and not catching, and that's gotten a lot better over the years. But it's a fun adventure, even if the fish aren't biting.
Now, when islanders are hopeful for ice, I mean, I know that there's always kind of like a ice ceremony at the beginning of the winter that, where they hope that there's going to be lots of ice. Is that more just, so that you have something interesting and fun to do, or is that in hopes that there'll be, a great harvest or whatever of fish, a great catch?
Yeah, it's strictly recreational activities. When I
Okay.
was a very young kid, fishermen could actually sell their fish. There was a guy on the island, John Nissen is the last one I remember, who bought fish and then they send them to the mainland to be sold. You could hook and line fish and catch fish and sell them. And that, I don't know when that was outlawed, but it was probably when I was quite young. But I still remember a place on the island where people could take their fish and sell them, and the times were a lot leaner back then. So
Sure.
that was, some people were pretty determined fishermen just to make a little extra money.
The other legend or story I've heard a lot is that folks would take their Christmas trees and line them up to create a path that you would follow like between the islands. Was that a real thing?
Yes, that's absolutely true. In fact, right now there's a couple of trees by the ramp at the state park, but that would be the tradition is
Huh.
when you were done with your Christmas tree, you'd take it and leave it by one of the ice ramps, or we called them runways, and it would be used when somebody did check and make a path wherever it was to the upper islands or to out to Rattlesnake to fish or to the mainland. They would plant Christmas trees in the ice to mark the route. I remember times when you were out there and it got a little nasty, and as long as you could see from one tree to the next, you were going. But it was all right. But yeah, that was a very normal and regular thing, and it was routine that's what people did with their trees when they were done with them.
That's fascinating. I bet there's a lot of Christmas trees at the bottom of Lake Erie, and they probably make wonderful habitat for the fishes that are down there.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a long time since I remember being a road to the mainland marked with trees, but I experienced that quite a few times.
You mentioned the northern islands, so talk about isolation. There are other islands in Lake Erie that maybe don't even have the air service that you have. Can the folks that are on those islands get to Put in Bay and get on a plane?
Yeah, the other islands, well, the upper islands, Kelly's Island has a nice airport, and
Okay.
Middle Bass and North Bass have airports as well. So the inhabited islands really pretty much are accessible by
Gotcha.
small airplanes. And even Rattlesnake has grass runways, so they can get in and out of there in the winter.
So, do you have any other like good winter stories or community stories? Like, what's it like to be on the island when there's not a bunch of tourists?
Well, it's nice. It's like a small community, like I would imagine they are everywhere, and people get caught up with each other that they don't see much during the busy season. There's activities like basketball games, and sometimes the kids put on plays or music programs at the school, and there's been some community theater performances
Oh, fun.
from time to time. So there are some interesting group activities too.
I just wanted to ask if do you have an idea how many people are there? How many people live on the island year round?
Well, we always like to say about 400 or 500. There's people that, there's constantly this controversy about who lives on here, the island, and who doesn't live on the island, and what an islander is. One of the funny sayings that I've heard, it came from another island, but they said when the last person that remembers when you moved to the island dies, then you become an islander. I
Then you're
thought that was a
official.
funny one. Yeah, but really, I think that there's a lot of people have a lot of different definitions. I don't think that it matters if your heart's here, then I think you're an islander. I also think my credentials are pretty strong.
For sure. Sounds like your roots run deep.
Yeah.
Considering you live on an island, I'm just curious, like, how do you feel about when it comes to like the summertime and the island picks up and it's a lot of traffic? Are you kind of, being that since you work for Miller Ferry, like, are you more like kind of excited with all the people coming through, or does it kind of get to you at times?
It varies. I mean, there's that anticipation, and it's fun, and I like being on boats. I like running boats. I've met so many unique and interesting people and had conversations with them on the 20-minute ride to the island. We get people from all over the world, and I've answered some really stupid questions, and
Okay.
but it's fun no matter what, and it's interesting, and I look forward to that. It gets pretty intense and busy for a long time, and it's exhausting by the end of the season. I think that's why people welcome a little break in the winter,
Yes.
and then you're ready to go again.
Yeah, you look forward to that respite that you get a little bit of a break and you can gear up for the next season. So how do you determine when that is? When is the ferry going to start running again?
Well, the Billy Market, who manages or runs the boat line, is the one that makes those decisions. And it's based on a lot of things, but we have tried not to run the boats through ice. It's really rough on equipment. And then if you ran boats year round, you would probably put the air services out of business, I would think, the air
Okay.
taxis. So there's some downsides to that as well, and gives you a chance to do a little work on the boat when they're sitting, and it gives guys a
Sure.
chance to get a little break and do some stuff at home too.
So you mentioned the air service. I assume they run year round as well, so they probably pick up a little bit in the winter and aren't quite as busy as you all are in the spring, summer, fall seasons.
Yes, their business changes in the summer because they take they have other longer routes. They're not just island
Right.
transportation, but they also take sightseeing flights. Somebody's got to haul the mail to all the islands, and that's done by air because they take mail to all these different islands, and by boat it would
Slow down the process.
yeah, it would be too time consuming. So they do have other summer businesses, but the air taxi service itself, when you need it, sometimes you need it. So it's a good thing
Right.
to have all the time.
But you all are able to transport like cement trucks and construction vehicles and utilities and things like that on the ferry. I bet there are probably folks that are, anticipating those projects starting out for the spring and are looking forward to you having the ferry running again.
Yes, we haul and have hauled just about anything and everything. The newer, bigger boats can accommodate probably three full-size semis without much trouble, or five or six tandem axle, quad axle dump trucks loaded. So the hauling capacity is much better. I've hauled stuff. I even had a helicopter on the boat one time.
Oh, wow.
The guy was
That's crazy.
bringing it over to put it in his hangar here at the airport to work on it here. So it was somewhat dismantled and on a trailer. And small airplanes too. We've hauled those as well. They take the wings off and carry it in two pieces. Semis, fuel, fireworks.
Yeah, you've had some unique transports over the years. I know you guys do all of the transport for the big Bash on the Bay music festival, like that's staging and lights and tour trucks and all of that.
Yes, yes, that's a huge logistics procedure there. Do you have any idea how many porta potties you got to haul over for an event like that?
It was a lot.
No,
It was a lot. I went last year and it was a lot.
That's a whole boatload in itself.
of porta potties. Some unique
Yeah,
things you definitely see on the boat, huh?
it's the kind of thing that probably most people don't even think about and take it for granted. But all that stuff has to get back and forth, and
Right.
that's
Those are
that's our job.
exactly. It's a very important service, and another one of the unique things that you did in 2023 was transport the Ohio State University marching band.
Yes, that was their second visit, and of course, Billy, the manager, one of the owners, is a Ohio State alum, so he played a major role in getting that set up again. But yeah, and so they have them on the boat. It's something to see, and what a band! What a band!
Wow.
They come into the downtown dock and they start playing and they're marching off the boat and then they march on down the road and have a parade, and it's really exciting and something to see. It's quite a spectacle.
Yeah, if you guys check out our social, there's some video there. I definitely went over there this season. It was huge. And the fireworks show at night is amazing. They're literally on the boat, like playing inside the water. At nighttime when they set off the fireworks between the Miller and the Jet.
Yes.
It was awesome.
Yeah, we always have a great fireworks display here too, and they've been quite adamant about keeping it on the 4th of July. So I respect that. It's always
Yeah.
one of the best fireworks displays around.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I've seen a couple of different fireworks shows out there, and they've always been spectacular.
As we not really approaching summer, but passing the winter, does the ferry go to all of the islands?
Our ferry service runs regular scheduled trips to Put Bay or South Bass, same thing, and Middle Bass. We do make stops at Rattlesnake, but those are not really passenger oriented. They're more bringing items and construction equipment and things like that on and off, and North Bass as well. So we do get into Rattlesnake and North Bass, but regularly scheduled. It's Put Bay and South Bass. The only other island I think that has regular service is Kelly's, and that's a different service,
Yep.
and we don't go there.
And I will have to say this, being that I take it so often in the summer, it is like your team and the timing is always like on point. I don't think I've ever like gotten there and we have not like left at the time it said it was going to leave or earlier and gotten where we were supposed to be on time, which is always like so nice, especially when I'm like running tight, trying to get in between events. Like it's always so punctual with you guys.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm a big fan of that. I say these ferries are like sharks. They got to keep moving or everything falls apart. And so one of my jobs was to make sure that we kept these boats going, and downtime is really an issue. And so that has been an interesting challenge for me over the years. And trying to now that we've got more boats, it's a little less of an issue because you have backup equipment. But as this business was growing and expanding and they were building the boats, keep learning the new boats and keeping things going was always an interesting, challenging part of my job.
How many boats are in the fleet, David?
We're up to 5 now. When I started, there were 3 boats, which are all gone now. The Market family built all 5 of these boats started in 83 with the Islander, 89 with the South Bass, 92 with the William Market, and 97 with the Put-in-Bay. And then, of course, the Marianne.
Tell us a little bit about Marianne Market. That's a new ferry boat for you.
The person or the boat?
The boat.
Because
A little
Marianne Market
about both.
was an outstanding individual, and she was quite a driving force behind Miller Boat Line, making Miller Boat Line what it is today. But the boat is, it's got a lot of really nice features, and there was a lot of effort put into making it a even more comfortable and enjoyable ride, even though it's only a 20-minute ride. And it's also got a lot of modern conveniences, which the old boats were updated to, but having it integrated into the boat is quite nice.
I've gotten to ride on that ferry, and I definitely notice I guess, upgrades. It feels like a more luxurious experience. I love the seating arrangement. I love the interior area, and that it's completely handicapped accessible. I know that there are a lot of folks that, maybe can't go up the stairs. If you've ever seen the ferries, mostly like vehicles and motorcycles and bikes on the lower deck, and then the seating is on the upper deck. But on the new boat, there is a whole interior seating area for those folks that need that. And it's air conditioned. Isn't it weather controlled as well?
Yes, we have both the passenger space on the main deck and on the second deck are climate controlled, and one of the unique features of the passenger space on the Marianne, of course, is that cabin on the upper deck is forward facing, so you can get a panoramic view. It's really, really spectacular. When they were building that, and just that part of the boat was sitting on the ground, they cut the holes out for the windows, and I knew when I saw that was just going to be an exceptionally nice addition, a new feature that people could enjoy. And the bridge on the boat is really something to see. Most people don't get to see that.
Well, you do.
Yeah.
Is that your favorite boat to pilot now?
That's interesting. That's a good question. I enjoy running any and all of the boats, and they're all different. Even two that were built from the same plans don't handle exactly the same. It is certainly, to me, the most comfortable boat to run, and it's got a spacious pilot house. I really like the way that it handles. I don't know. It's like asking somebody if they have a favorite child. I guess you're not supposed to say.
Gotcha.
But I enjoy running that boat at least as much as any of the others that I've ever run.
Those boats are going to be back in the water literally before we know it, because it's already February. So where can people go to find more information on the Miller Ferry?
Well, the millerferry.com website should have anything you need, and we do have people in the office regularly in the winter to answer questions, although that usually doesn't start up till the ferries are back in service. I would expect that sometime in March we'll resume daily service, and we're working hard to make sure that everything's ready to go and jump back in.
Yeah, we're really looking forward to it. I know Dayton and I both love getting over to the islands and visiting, and don't want to ruin your wonderful quiet winter you've been having, but we're anxious, of course, to get the season started. So, David, could you one more time say the website for everybody?
Yes, it's Miller Ferry, MillerFerry.com.
Perfect.
And you can access all kinds of things. You can see our fleet. You can see our schedules for the upcoming season, and that changes as we get busier and the days get longer and we add more trips. It also has all the information about our parking and
all kinds of good stuff there.
Yeah, and then a lot of I think there's links about activities, and there's probably a schedule of the events.
Yep, there's event information, there's discount coupons, there's all kinds of good stuff on your website, and also Miller Ferries on all of the social media networks. Follow them on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter for kind of updates. We want to know when they start running. That's the best place to find that information, and I'm sure Dayton will be sharing that out through the Shores and Islands Network as well. So before we wrap, anything else?
There's an awful lot of things to do on the island, and hopefully people are aware of that. Like you're talking about, there's all these conservancy walks, and there's an aquatic visitor center, there's a historical museum, cave tours, amusements, a golf course. There's still island tours, which to me, anytime I go someplace, I like to take a tour
Absolutely.
before I do anything, because they give you some kind of an idea of what's going on and what's there to see, and then you can plan your day or your next days around that. People can come here for a few hours and really enjoy themselves, or they can come here for a few days and really enjoy themselves. But we do have a lot of family-friendly activities too, and I hope people don't overlook that, because there's a lot of things to do. Come here during the week, especially.
Absolutely, I 100% concur. So we love Put in Bay, we love South Bass Island, and want to just, of course, thanks to Captain David Bianchi from the Miller Ferry for joining us today, and thanks to you for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, please be sure to like and subscribe wherever you are listening to podcasts so that you don't miss a minute of the action here in Shores and Islands, Ohio. You can find more information, including past episodes of this podcast, online at shoresandislands.com. Thanks for hanging out with us today, and we'll see you next time on The Shoreline.